Hello, everybody. I'm aware the people here are already doing remarkable work in this department. So, nothing that I will say will be new to you, but I'm really glad to be here as a representative of one of the oldest film industries in the world, where today films are being written for women and making money at the box office and changing a few perceptions that maybe only cinema can change, reaching the lowest common denominator. And I'm fortunate to be sharing the panel with people who have given their lives for the cause of compassion for total strangers. I think women's issues will remain women's issues till they are no longer issues, because nobody ever says men's issues, you know. So जब तक ये मुद्दा है तब तक ये बात रहेगी, और ज़रूरी नहीं कि इस लाइफ टाइम में कंप्लीट हो जाए, इस ज़िंदगी में हम इस चीज़ को मिटा पाएँ, क्योंकि सालों की कंडीशनिंग है, हज़ारों सालों का कल्चर है, पर हम कोशिश कर सकते हैं. और अगर मेरी माँ की लाइफ अपनी माँ से बेहतर हो सके और मेरी लाइफ मेरी माँ से बेहतर हो सके, then we've achieved something. Thank you.
Vikant.
Vikant, my name is Nishik.
I'd also now like to welcome to the stage my colleague at Vital Voices, our Director of Legal Initiatives and Human Rights, Gigi Scholes.
No video for me.
And back to the stage, Richa Chadha. Richa. And last, but certainly not least, I'd also like to introduce to you Priti Padkar. Show her film now.
I did not know what my mother did for a living. She was trafficked in...
So I first wanted to start with the Justice Institute. What is the Justice Institute? And Christine, why did the Avon Foundation decide to become involved with this initiative?
Sure. Well, Avon is the company for women. For 130 years, we provided, as Rahul mentioned, the economic opportunity all across the world. The Avon Foundation focuses on issues of most importance to women and their families: breast cancer and gender-based violence. Nothing more important than those two to our women, to our customers, to the communities that we serve. And one thing that we have learned for sure is that whether you're in India or whether you're in Italy, the UK or the United States, violence against women is happening. There are degrees of how it's reported in the news. There are all forms of violence that are taking place. It's not unique to one culture, one religion, one economic group. It's everywhere. The Avon Foundation, we launched our Speak Out program because we want to give women a voice to be able to talk about these issues. It's very scary, as we know. It's hard to come forward. And yet, we need people to come together. The Justice Institutes do just that. They give an opportunity for people who are focusing on these issues to sit at tables and to have very lively discussions over the course of several days to say, this is my perspective on violence, this is how I see it, I'm a police officer, this is what I'm dealing with, I'm a magistrate, this is what I'm dealing with, an NGO, an advocate. And yet, we need to look at this issue from the perspective of the victim. We have to remember at all times who we're here to serve and how to hold batterers accountable. The countries that we select have excellent laws. There are laws in place. Are they being implemented properly? And how can we help facilitate that conversation? So as the funder, all across 70 markets, we want to be able to convene meetings such as this, and that's exactly what the Justice Institutes do.
Thank you. That's great. You talked about, perspective, certainly the perspective of the victim.
The multidisciplinary approach that the Justice Institute has, the different stakeholders that it's trying to bring together on one platform is very, very important, because when we are addressing issues like domestic violence, sexual assault, it's not one person or, it's not one person or one department which has to handle it. It's many people together who need to understand this issue, be sensitive, feel compassionate. And what I like about the Justice Institute is during the period of 3 days, it also gives us the platform to listen to people. And I think that is something lacking, because sometimes we all think we know it all. And when we begin to think we know it all, it's impacting negatively the community which is most affected, because nobody's hearing her. And I think what the community really wants, the affected person really wants, is that all those who have the power to listen to her voice, to understand what is it that she wants. And I think that's something that the Justice Institute really tries to do. And if that process really begins, I think it's going to have a great impact on I use the word affected community, who are affected the most. I think it's really going to benefit them the most.
Thank you. Gigi, talk to me about how you pick partners like Priti to work with, like Ravi.
Well, Vital Voices has a broad network of women leaders and outstanding male leaders all around the world that do impactful and innovative work in their own communities. And Vital Voices really seeks out partners that have a vision for change in their communities, because these are really going to be what makes a difference to victims. Here in India, we have just such a wealth of amazing partners. We have Priti, we have Ravi and his brothers, we have Judge Swati Chauhan, who joined us in planning, as well as Save the Children India, which was able to also connect us to the Department of Child and Women Development. And of course, we have the support of our friends at Avon and the U.S. Department of State. And it's really these kinds of partnerships coming together, bringing together these powerful leaders that have a vision for what's needed in their own communities to improve the life within their community for their own people, that is going to drive change. These are the people who are showing innovative ideas that we want to partner with and that we seek out around the world.
So you mentioned innovation and sort of participants and service providers that have a vision for change, a vision for the future. Ravi, I think ironically, men being involved in and of itself is visionary, and unfortunately. You heard Consul General Vaida talk about that a little bit, about men's role and men's responsibility to help end gender-based violence around the world. It seems like a logical, obvious thing, but unfortunately, you're one of the few. So, what you and your brothers are doing at Shakti Vani is groundbreaking. One of the things I want to hear about is how you're using what you're doing to shift culture, how you're working with young men and other men in the community to make change.
Certainly, men have to lead actually in this issue. We have remained silent for many years, and it's time that we should speak up. India is a big country. When I'm focusing on India, a large population lives in the villages. The huge amount of work on gender-based violence and other issues, implementation of laws, strengthening of legislations, have all impacted the cities. And it's still, we have all the bad news coming out from the cities. But if you go out into the large hinterland of India, the rural India, things continue to remain the same. And in this bleak situation, I think that individual responsibilities can change situations. And here, when individual responsibilities, I think men should join this fight. They should speak up. They should break this culture of silence. They should also start intervening. And that can start from your house, from your village, from your college, from everywhere you can start speaking up. If you just start speaking up on these issues, I think we can have a big, big change, and we can really strengthen the government's hand in when they are coming up with legislation, when they are coming up with path-breaking initiatives like Beti Bachao, Beti Uthao, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao of the government of India. I think that here we have to play a big change, and men should take the lead.
Thank you. Richa, you've been vocal about shifting culture and culture in its role in fueling the fire of this epidemic. So, tell me your thoughts on what needs to be done for basic education for women. What's, in your perspective, what's left to do to achieve gender equality in India?
India is one of the few countries in the world where violence against women starts in the womb, before the girl is even born, with feet aside. So I think that we have to overcome our hypocrisy as a culture. एक तरफ तो हम नवरात्रे मनाते हैं, 9 days of fasting for the goddess. There's Durga Puja. There's all kinds of goddesses in India that are worshipped and praised, perhaps more than other cultures. But when it comes to our women, our daughters, wives, mothers, sisters, we have a completely different standard, and that's something that's baffled me since I was a child. More than educating the girls know that they are at par. We have to give them confidence that they can do whatever they want in the world. It's also about educating the men to not treat the women any differently, because it starts from there. It starts from the patriarch or the person in charge of this power who is condemning everybody else to a certain way of life. And it's basic shifts in attitude, and it will take a lot of time, because somewhere we are conditioned into thinking a certain way, and it's a very large topic, because it questions sort of culture, religion, tradition, and but I think it's time we question some stuff. If we don't question it, then who will? If somebody from outside questions it, then we get defensive, but we must question our own culture and use the best aspects of it. Like, if goddess worship is your thing, that's the best aspect of your culture, then truly live it in every form, every way, and that we can.
Thank you. We, until that time, it's going to take some time to shift those attitudes. There are the laws that are in place. That is also what the Justice Institute is really about, is also talking about what's happening. Ravi, what is
frankly speaking, I don't think we need more laws at this stage. I think we need to concentrate on implementation. We need to concentrate on how sensitive we are when we are trying to ensure justice for this victim. Because laws are in place, but they're not unfolding the way we want it to unfold from the victim-centric point of view. So I think that's something that we really need to look at. Fortunately for us, there has been a lot of civil society participation every time a legislation has come into place. And because there was civil society participation, I'm taking credit for it, giving credit to the civil society, which is very true. The attempt when every law came in place was we've tried to give a role to many stakeholders. And I think if each of these stakeholders are given that enabling environment to try and help this victim, there's a lot we can really do for the victim, because these instruments to a great extent are good. And I feel that unless and until we do not see how they are unfolded, and we do not see what is working and what is not working, I feel at this stage we should not push for more legislations. And like I said earlier, I strongly feel that the sensitivity that we need to show, whereby thinking we are compassionate, sometimes we end up re-traumatizing the victim. She's undergoing secondary trauma because of the way other actors are performing in the process of giving her justice or in the process of rehabilitating her. I think if we can now start working on those issues, the finer issues, like we say, scaling really deep into the issue and seeing how best we can do where it's beyond lip service, where we are actually seeing that the victim is experiencing change. I am not saying there is a change, but the victim is herself saying, well, this instrument really helped me get justice and brought a change in my life where my human rights were really protected. I think that's the path we really need to now take and go ahead.
On that, we're talking about the victims who are, but these are the victims who are coming forward. And one of the things that Ravi talked about earlier was a culture of silence and breaking the culture of silence. So clearly there's still a problem of underreporting. And so, Richa, I would like to throw this question to you. What can be done in society, right? There's an issue of education around all of these things. What can be done to lift the social stigma on underreporting and on breaking that culture of silence?
There is definite underreporting because it is seen as a loss of dignity and honor. So most people would rather let their daughters or just live with that rather than come out in the open and discuss it. They don't want to be questioned. They don't want her to lose face or lose face in the society. Like the literal translation of rape in most of our movies and culture for the longest time was Izzat Lootna, which means to rob one's honor, or in English, to attack somebody's modesty. And this leads to things like, the victim's name being hidden, and then this whole deal about how their privacy. In fact, it ought not to be the victim who should be ashamed because it was not her fault to begin with. And if we have to really change an attitude, we should maybe look at people who commit this crime and hold them accountable publicly and see what that does. Because I was sharing with you yesterday, there is a juvenile delinquent center between Mahim and Sion. I don't know how many people have seen it. I was shooting a film there called Mayor Charles, and I was just hanging out outside my trailer, and I met a guy who must have been between 15 and 17 years old, who was in there for rape. So then I asked him, I said, what did you do? He said, I raped my 11-year-old neighbor. I said, and are you regretful? He was like, yeah, I feel bad for her sometimes, but I didn't really want to study any further, and I didn't like where I lived. So I thought that in any case, if I'm 15 now, if I get 7 years of prison time, I'll still be young when I get out and I can start over. That was his callous attitude towards harming another child so in such a horrible way. But and that place is such that if you you are the company you keep, the kind of atmosphere, it is a reformation center, but oftentimes it appears to be like a jail. So then there is a definite change in the person the child that goes there and the adult that comes out, and they are not reformed at all. So so much needs to be done at so many levels, but I think first we should erase this whole aspect of shame, because there's already a lot that the victim is dealing with. And in fact, when I read the statistics today about India, I would think they are easily double of what is there because of the underreporting.
Gigi, how does India sort of, the statistic right now is approximately, or at least, sorry, not even approximately, at least 1 in 3 women around the world will experience some form of physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. And so that's that's global. So how does India sort of stack up against the rest of the world? How does the rest of the world stack up against India?
So, I always hesitate to compare country to country because the reality is that all around the world, women face violence, and the reality is that that violence will most likely be committed by someone that the victim knows, someone in their own life, and that the majority of women face this violence in their own homes. So in that sense, I'll say that India is just like so many other places that I've been, and the country that I live in as well. No country I've been to yet, and I've traveled a lot, has been immune from this problem. Women all around the world are at a threat in the hands of the people in their own families and in their lives. People that women and children should be able to trust, take advantage of that trust globally.
And to close, we've talked about, Priti touched on the need for the victims to receive more support. We've talked about shifting culture, men's need to get involved. How is the Justice Institute sort of ground zero right now, Christine, for what society as a whole can do?
I think the Justice Institute is just a terrific collaboration because we need our media partners, we need our government partners, we need funders and organizations and companies like Avon who are going to stand up and say, this may not be easy to talk about for our business, but it's an important thing for us to do. We see the big headlines every day, but to underscore what Gigi talked about, violence is happening in people's homes every single day. And those aren't reported widely, and we need to help women, empower them to come forward, to know that there are resources like Shakti Bahini and Prerna so that they can live their lives free from violence.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to go to the audience if there are any questions from the audience for our panelists. Don't be shy now. Anyone? Yeah?
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate all the dignitaries coming up to speak up on such a topic, which is every time which has been discussed about a lot of NGOs, a lot of journals have been publishing the stories. But when it comes to reality, I mean to say, is it real that nothing has been done so far? As Richa mentioned that in a country where goddesses are worshipped, but when it comes to government, all the governments, they have been trying their means on paper or on speaking up, but when it comes to practically, do you think nothing has been done so far, in a way which can be said, we can say that there is coming a stop to violence over women?
I think the problem is so huge that the government initiatives need to be supported with public support also is required. Implementation of law is an important issue. We have a lot of legislation, but implementation and budgeting and funding of those legislation continues to remain problems. We have done a lot of things like, especially for delivery of justice, special courts, creation of children courts, all of these things have been done, but I think that we need to do a lot. We are a big, huge country, and we have to strengthen these initiatives at the district level. We may have a special court in Mumbai, but in some special court in Bastar district, that's not there. So we have to invest a lot. The government has to do a lot in terms of implementation of these legislations. Child-related legislation, women's issues-related legislation, building infrastructure for the judiciary, infrastructure for the law enforcement. We continue to remain crucial about the law enforcement responses. We continue to blame the police, but we fail to realize that they work on a very tight budgets. They have least prepared and sensitized to work on these issues of women, violence against women. So training of law enforcement is an important issue, training of the judiciary, sensitization. We have to do a lot of work, and I think that the government has been doing it. It's slowly increasing its commitment on these issues, and we have to supplement it. But finally, I think that each and every individual can help in this fight. Thank you.
in closing, I just, on behalf of Vital Voices, I want to say thank you to everyone here. I'd like to thank our partners with the Avon Foundation, Christine, Avon India, Rahul, and Richa for joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule to lend your voice to this important issue. Priti and Ravi for all the amazing work that you're doing, and Consul General Vida and his team for joining us on behalf of the United States Department of State, who's taking a really incredible role on the world stage and leading the fight on ending gender-based violence. So thank you very much, everyone.
We'll just be having a photo op right now on stage. Just give us a second, we're going to move the tables. Yeah?
Can we just, and actually, we would like to invite everyone to a seated lunch right next door. So you're welcome to stay for the photo opportunity if you'd like to, but also feel free to move to the next room.
Narayan sir, hello, good morning.
True that not all Bollywood films always depict women in the best light, but to counter that, we have more than enough films that also spread awareness about women, about their rights, about their sexuality, about their dignity, and I think that balances it out. And having said that, one can only strive to be more responsible in the future. You can't undo things that happened before you were born. I hope that answers your question.
Richa, talking about the professional front, what's happening?
Hey, क्या कर रहे हो यार? This is a different venue.
Just to come up here and say, what are the projects you're busy with these days?
I'm very busy, which is why I think we should talk about females first, gender violence. Any questions you
So
have
lastly,
for
what do you
Avan and Avan?
Lastly, what do you think should be done what should be the main things to be done to just curse all this?
Treat women as human beings and as equals. That's the only thing. Because if you don't do that, then you're neglecting half the population.
Ma'am, you're from Bollywood. In Bollywood, there are a lot of women acting in Bollywood, apart from
Yeah.
Bollywood. Especially according to Bollywood, do you really think there are any kind of challenges or such kind of instances which women face in Bollywood?
I think it's difficult because it is a male-dominated industry, but I think it's changing, and I do see a big change in the next 5 years with more directors and producers who will be female, as well as more directors and producers who will be male, who are sensitive. That's the big change.
So, Risha, when you said that Bollywood is a male-dominated industry, so in a way, doesn't this hints that Bollywood?
We are living in a patriarchal industry. Why don't you look at yourself? How many of you are women? Turn the mirror around. How many of you are women? I see only male cameramen and one lady holding a mic. We are living in a patriarchal society. We have to deal with it. We can't point fingers for the sake of sensationalizing.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Richa, one moment, please. So, Richa, we spoke about the women facing violence in their homes and everything, and all all these amazing people who are volunteers and who are interested in a particular set of class. So how are we supposed, are you collaborating or something on this?
I would love to. I did something earlier this year for a rehabilitation of some children of sex workers, of girls who've been, or girls who've been trafficked at a very young age. But I hope really to be able to collaborate with Shakti Vahini and with Prerna. And I think they are doing an amazing job. I've never really come across a brand that has been so involved. And I think it starts with encouraging women to be self-sufficient. They have a multi-level marketing business model, and that by itself encourages people to take initiative and make the money. And oftentimes you see several women don't get out of abusive relationships because they're financially dependent. So I think that's where it starts.
So how do you think the Vital Voices and the Avon Foundation and the Prerna, how are they going to collaborate together and form a different insight?
So Avon has funded now our second Justice Institute in India, and we hope to convene many more. And it's not just here in this country, in every country where Avon does business in 70 markets. India, Italy, the UK, the United States, violence against women is happening. And so by Avon funding these organizations to come together, we rely on our local communities, we rely on our Avon partners, we rely on celebrities. She's taking the time out of her schedule to talk about how important this issue is. Not many people want to talk about it because it's not easy. But your time today and the partnership of everybody, we have to start somewhere. We have to start the conversation. We need to speak out against domestic violence, and that's what Avon's plan is to do.
So you come from Haryana, and how?
I don't come from Haryana.
The north side of India, which
I come from Delhi. It's the capital.
it's in the rape capital as well. So how do you see Delhi?
There are rapes that happen. There are 92 rapes that happen per minute in India. Some happen in Delhi, some happen in Bombay. And I think it's equally shameful wherever in the world it happens, whether it's in Kashmir or in Assam or even in the Andamans. I think rape is about power much more than it is a sex crime, and we need to understand why we need to have that power over another human being. It starts with, it has to be understood.
Before coming in the industry, or like in the earlier years, did you ever see violence happening with women around your area?
Of course, I grew up in India. Well, it's a way of life. It's not something that you experience once in a while. Violence is not something that is just physical. It's also intimidation. It's also